All you, Paul Katz.
All right, I'm good. Great to be here, Jay.
My pleasure, brother. J. Matias Unfiltered, episode 9 with Paul Katz. Hit it.
All right. On the fly.
Awesome, man. Awesome. That was today's special intro from a good friend, Paul Katz. So I was actually you already told me what it is, but just so the audience knows, so what you're a fiber engineer, what exactly is that?
Well, I like to
Pull it
usually,
towards you if you want.
I usually like to say, when people say, what am I like to say, I'm a hack and a fraud. I'm nobody. But I'm somebody.
Yeah.
But I should give you a disclaimer.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. About half of what I say is probably could be categorized as mumbo jumbo, if not everything. The other half of it may be, if you looked at scientifically, medical, and so on, could probably be proven. Like whether, like a fly has awareness or consciousness.
Yeah.
They do studies and they show that they do have nerves and they do have some sort of awareness. So I like to, just let's get out
going
there.
deep right
Let's
off
go
the
deep.
bat.
Exactly.
Just tell them what's a fiber
And I want to give a
engineer.
shout out, just like you did for the watch that's set to now.
Yeah.
The last week's podcast, I recommended highly to anybody and everybody that comes across this video because I felt like it was literally the podcast was like inside my head, and I was
Really?
hearing the voices in my head with Tank,
Nice.
Tim, Goose, and Jay. Now, listen, when we talk about complementary opposites, there's something for everybody, but there's also some people, it's all relative. So for some people, it may be totally not their thing at that time in their life or ever. So I think with the mumbo jumbo, either it makes sense or it doesn't, and it may make sense later or it may never make sense. You know what I mean? So as far as work, what I do, I started out as a musician, which is kind of why I brought this guitar with me, because I kind of felt it's an amazing metaphor. Like when you're a Muay Thai fighter or you're a musician, whatever it may be, that you have your passion and that achieves these peak moments. What happens when you're not able to do that? Like if you're a Muay Thai fighter, you can't fight Muay Thai 24 hours a day. I mean, you could, but you might get in trouble.
Yeah, you get pretty burned out.
Right. Or legally, you may get into some, like you can't just walk down the
No,
boulevard.
definitely not.
And then with music, like I was listening to this interview with this amazing guitarist, John McLaughlin, very spiritual guy. He was actually associated with Sri Chimnoy out here in the 70s and stuff. But he was saying how with music, like his guitar is like an extension of his body. And I thought that's amazing. But then I thought with me, like when I have the guitar, it's amazing. It is like almost an extension. But then what happens, like when you get to take a shower or when you're sleeping, can you have your guitar with you all the time? Maybe not. So how do I deal with it? So anyway, the reason why I just got onto that tangent was when you said I work as a fiber engineer. And
What
the thing
is that?
Well, basically, the reason is that as a musician, when I was younger, I kind of realized I wanted to be like a rock star. And I realized that the chances of making that, were kind of like making it as a movie star or a, television star, a pro athlete. You know how it is. Like if you do locally or regionally, you could be a huge success.
Yeah.
But then when you get towards the top, it becomes, more and more difficult. It's like a bottleneck. So that's less and less people. So like I'm famous like on one corner of the town I grew up in. I'm like the guy from Led Zeppelin to my friends that I grew up with.
Yeah.
But like, and then anywhere else you go, you kind of, it sort of levels out. Now, my whole feeling was that, I love playing music. I'm not going to stop playing music as long as I can. I think I always will. But instead of trying to pursue it financially, where making it meant getting a deal, a record deal, and money, instead of doing that, I'm going to do something else. That way I could do music and the music can be free. And that's how I got into engineering.
Oh, all
Because
right.
I was fascinated by like when you pick a guitar up, you know, and you
Hmm.
when you pick a guitar up, how does
Yeah.
it make these sounds and these vibrations? And then the music goes down these wires, and then it goes into to an amplifier. Like all these, it just fascinated me. I was like, wow, that's cool, man. I could definitely, as long as people want to make music, video, movies,
Yeah.
television, they're going to need someone technical. So
Of
why don't I
course.
get into the technical side of it? Then I could be my own engineer for the stuff I do. Plus, I could probably do it as a living.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into that. Now,
But what exactly is fiber?
well,
Like,
the
what do
thing
they
is,
mean
oh
fiber?
man, you want to get out there, fiber.
Like, put it simple so everybody
Okay,
knows.
but the funny thing about this fiber is that it's at a wavelength that exceeds what the eye can see. Yet, if you took it and you looked at it, you could blind yourself or you could burn your skin. But it's fiber optic. So, and that's a great metaphor for things in life that we don't understand.
Mm.
Like, if we don't have the capacity to understand things, how can we say that they don't exist? They just don't exist with the tools we have to measure them. So, I got into fiber because I started out in audio. Then I also got into film. And those industries changed because of computers and the power of computers.
Yeah.
People started making records or music and movies differently. Instead of having to go with these big facilities, they could do more independently. So I kind of changed like a chameleon and just got into different. I did everything from climbing up on people's roofs, putting satellite dishes, hanging
Wow.
plasma TVs. I got into that kind of work, and then I ended up doing sound for film, and then I got out of that. And with fiber, basically, in a way, it's so basically a lot of signal, whether it's on the internet here or television, banks, data, all this stuff goes over fiber optics. So all this basically is zeros and ones. It's digital information that's get transmit as light. And then it's like we're like UPS or FedEx. We just basically send signals. We get signals from one place and we send them to another place. It could be
So
locally.
it's transferring
It's
signal.
transport. In other words, we're just moving stuff around.
So that's audio,
It's It's video.
audio.
It could be video only, or it could be audio only, or it could be video with audio.
So basically, you transfer audio and video to their
Well,
destination.
basically, yeah, we basically aggregate the stuff. In other words, we collect stuff and then we distribute stuff. So we're just like a switch. All we're doing is basically like directing traffic. We're getting stuff from, something comes in from one place, we send it to another place, and then finally, like with this, for example, you're getting the content right now.
Yeah, like
right?
from the mixer
Right, from the mixers going to the video to the camera.
to the camera and into the
And then when
Zoom.
you distribute it, it's going to go, YouTube will take care of it with their servers, distributing it out throughout the world using that network. But what happens with these networks, the same way you have couriers like FedEx and UPS, you have big companies like Verizon, Level
Yeah.
3, Time Warner, and these people, what they do is they just move the data around for people.
Mm.
So all I do basically, I like to say, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, and that I basically deal with video, audio, computers, electrical stuff with air conditioning, mechanical
Wow.
systems, and then technical stuff as well as fiber. So the fiber is basically all it's doing is you have a light, you have the source is, you have a laser that generates light, and that goes into equipment that goes to a physical fiber that usually, typically in New York City, goes in the underground. There's an amazing underground of New York City, and it goes all over locally and all over throughout the world as light. And then when it gets to its location, which could be next door, it could be in Japan, they take that light and they have equipment that converts that back to an electrical signal. So, for example, what we're doing right now,
Yeah.
the video of you and I and the audio, it's all collectively going to be an electrical signal, and that signal will get digitized onto the computer, and then it'll get stored on the YouTube server, and then when they play it out, it'll get distributed.
Oh,
So
nice.
what we're really doing, and what I do really is just, deal with technical equipment technology, but really I like to say a lot of what I do is just deal with people, because behind every piece of equipment and every client, there's people that you need to deal with. And I think that's the most important thing they talk about. Like if you go to school for computers, there's the layers of the computer model. Like, for example, you're sitting at the computer, there's an application that you're using to record. Then
Well, yeah.
there's an operating system, and then there's the actual data, the actual ones and zeros. There's all these different layers, but the most important layer is the person. Like if there wasn't people to make videos or watch videos,
Then what else is there?
and that goes back to the whole thing about complementary opposites and like podcasts. Like what do we? It's like a show about nothing, but it's about a show about something, but nothing. In other words, there needs to be empty space in order to
Yeah.
put things.
Oh, let me stop you right there. Can you actually grab that? Because it blocks you on the screen,
Okay.
so people can't really.
All they can see is the hemp seeds and the cocoa nibs.
I mean, you could we'll put it right here.
Well, this I don't want to. This is probably going to defrost, so we don't want that to mark up the. You can put there's good.
Yeah, it's all right.
It's like a weapon right now because it's frozen.
Yeah.
What I do is I make those in batches and I freeze them, and then I could have like make 3 or 4 of them, and I could eat it like ice cream or drink it.
So this is what's this?
All kinds of stuff. Like my coworkers and I always kid around. I call it grass and dirt.
Grass and dirt.
Hey.
That's what you brought.
What I live on is greens and beans, fruits and roots, and
Yeah, because I know you're plant-based
Hey.
or vegan.
like Tim was saying that with the labels. But get back to the labels. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'll try to tie it back into what you originally asked me. Our daughter had something with the school where they were saying that they had protected. People should be protected their actual versus their perceived race, religion, gender, age, ethnicity, etc. And the amazing thing about that is the first thing I mentioned, which is perceived versus actual. So in other words, I may actually be 103 years old, but people may perceive me. Oh, that dude looks like he's 40 or 50. You see what I'm saying? So I could actually be perceived as being one religion or nationality when I'm actually not. So the thing is,
you're right.
what you perceive, perception versus actuality, those are another two of the complementary opposites. And if you only see one of them, in a way, you're only getting half of the thing. So like when I say like, what do you do? What are you? That's a great question. It's like what Tank and you and Tim and Goose were hitting on, and it was amazing. Like when you ask these questions, then you almost ask yourself,
really?
who am I? What do I do?
We're really just human. It's just
Well, and that's true, but I heard someone say something that was great. They were saying that it's an action, like being human is an action verb. So it's like what Tank was saying, when you were saying, when there's the thinker thinking and then thoughts, or in this case, a singer singing and the song, but there's only really singing. There's only that action, and we only perceive a separate entity as the song and the person. So the thing is, as an engineer, my main thing is it's basically fiber engineer is an engineer that fixes light that you can't see. So now you say, well, how can you fix light if you can't see it? Well, that's the trick, is you have equipment that allows you to see this light that typically with the naked eye you wouldn't be able to see it. And what I love about that, one of my colleagues years ago mentioned something about being an engineer, fixing things in life. A lot of times things need to be maintained. They go wrong. You need to fix them. You need to figure out things. So it's a great metaphor, a job for life, because in life, often we're found in situations that, oh my God, how am I going to deal with this? How am I going to, make it work? How am I going to fix this? And some things maybe can't be fixed, but we can at least try to improve it. And that's why, once again, if I refer back, I could look at 5 pages of notes that I have, but I probably
that's crazy.
won't. But the thing with that, maybe that could be another show. But the thing with that is that what I was going to say was that a lot of times people talk about, here's how you end suffering. Here's how you can stop.
Yeah, they have a set way for their beliefs and
right. But the thing about that, what I was going to get at with that was that I'm not interested in stopping suffering or ending it. I'm interested, that's an ideal. I'm interested in the reality, which would be reducing it. Like, how do I lower it? Like Tank was saying, the voices in his head. And I totally agree, because like on the way here, the voices in my head and I was thinking about
clutter.
Well, I was thinking, but like Tim was saying with the meditation, the surface of the water.
Yeah.
The thing with that is that sometimes you want to turn the voices up in your head so you can hear them, but other times you want to turn them down when you don't want to hear them. That's the trick in life. I really, really
I
Really
mean,
believe that.
I'm
And like you were saying with belief, well, belief is something I don't know. So it's like Tank went back to the Socratic oath, which is I know
I
nothing.
know nothing,
And then
and
he
that's
also went to the Bhagavad Gita, which is the Vedas. And the Vedas are the ancient teachings that predate all religion, predate Judaism, predate Islam, Christianity. They're basically the teachings of the masters, the Vedas. And there's a great thing because that goes with yoga, which is called Ayurveda. Ayurveda, which is the healing through natural stuff. And I love it. It's like Ayurveda, and yet I would say, yeah,
I mean, you're a practitioner of yoga,
I'm
right?
nothing. I'm just I'm like I'm nobody. No, I am, and no. But and the main thing I also love to tie in is that the way when I first met you, for me, playing guitar, growing up with more of like a hippie, love, peace, that whole studying philosophy and religion and this and that. But then I realized that there's this other side, this physical part, whether it's fighting, whether it's anger and these other things that are sort of part of life too. And how do you put them together? And I realized you don't have to put them together. They already are. Like we said earlier, complementary opposites. It's like when you go to the hotel, complimentary buffet, complimentary internet,
Complimentary breakfast.
So complementary opposites means that to just have love alone, it would be nearly impossible.
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned it before. We need to
Yeah.
have a balance with everything
Right.
you do. Like you mentioned it before we got on. Like, we can't only have peaks in our lives. We have to go down.
Right.
But that also makes you appreciate the good.
I think you're
You
right.
know?
I think it's the hardest thing though, like we said too, is like I discovered martial arts because after years of really being troubled with the ups and downs, and just like everybody and anybody typically in life, you're looking for pleasure and trying to avoid pain. I mean, right? I mean, not just people.
Naturally,
but
yeah.
If you look at like even they do the studies with the mice or the monkeys with cocaine or whatever it is, and they constantly choose the thing over and over eating or sleeping until they die. In other words, that pleasure is just such a thing, and
So
it's not
good.
just human. It's just so the thing is, I think it's natural to want to have good times and minimize the bad times, absolutely. But it's not always possible. So I think that we can control our thinking to a certain degree, but certain things we can't control. We have to try to our best. How can I interact with that? And what I like to look at when I said with absolutes, like how to end suffering completely. Well, in our business that I work in, there's something called the 5 nines, so that it doesn't mean like your internet's not going to work 100% of the time.
Yeah.
5 nines mean 99.9999, which means that if you equated it 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, that would be the equivalent of, okay, your internet's not going to work for 28 minutes a year. So
Really?
think about, like, if I give you a cookie and I say, Jay, I want you to eat this whole cookie, and you try to eat the whole cookie, maybe a crumb falls. And like, remember in The Grinch That Stole Christmas, there was a crumb too small for a mouse. But the thing is that you couldn't eat the whole cookie. You would eat 99.99999, and a tiny bit you couldn't eat. So there's always that little 0.0000000.
Yeah, that you don't.
So like I feel like we can probably reduce suffering, and that's why I got into martial arts, and yoga was a way to typically when I was a young kid I was into sports, but after that, being a teenager and young adult, I totally was not into any kind of physical activity at all, except like eating. And I was basically,
Of course.
I was a lot bigger than I am, not twice as much weight, but certainly maybe, I don't know, 75 or 100 pounds heavier than I am now.
Wow.
And I just felt horrible. And becoming a parent, I was like, I got to figure something out because I have this person now that I'm responsible for. So I want to try to make certain choices in my life so that I can affect my life in a positive way the best I can. Because like there's a great thing in Alcoholics Anonymous. They talk about, it's actually the Serenity Prayer.
Well, you used to go?
I never went, but I had friends that do, so I like to consider myself an unofficial member, but I never went. But the guy, I think the guy was named, you could probably look it up, at Rudolf Niebert or something. The guy, the Serenity Prayer, you've probably heard it.
Rudolph.
You know this Serenity Prayer?
I haven't. No, actually, I haven't heard it.
Well, it's the prayer is like the Serenity Prayer is at the heart of AA in addition to the 12 steps. But the thing with that is that prayer actually came before AA. But basically what it is that what you can do things about, you do them, and what you can't, you're able to live with them, and then the wisdom to tell the difference.
Yeah,
That's
it
what's
actually came up here. God
Yeah.
grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
right. So, like for me, when I was really out of shape and I could barely, walk up a flight of stairs without wheezing, and
Wow.
because I was heavy and I smoked and stuff. And so I decided, let me try to do something, change it. Now, I can't change everything, but I can certainly, what I can do within the realm of what I can do, which probably, if I just listen back to what I said, doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
But
it doesn't.
so, like, but
Really
in other
doesn't.
words, what kind of lifestyle choices can I make? And that's getting into yoga, martial arts, and meditation, in my opinion, may help one cultivate awareness so that you're aware of what's going on around you. And then also, it may help mindfulness of what you're going to do. And for example, even like what, to keep rolling back to the Tank, Tim, Jay, and Goose podcast from last week, which I highly recommend, is being present.
Yeah,
Being present in the moment.
that's
Like
the
with all this
best.
technology, like on the drive over here, I saw some person next to me. He's texting on his phone, and you can see almost.
And
Like,
it's snowing on top of that.
and the thing is that with all this technology, it's a beautiful thing. That's what I do for a living. I work with technology, right? Light that you can't see. But the thing is that it's a double-edged sword. Just like a sword could chop up your fruits and vegetables, you could also chop off your finger by mistake. So the thing is that, and it's like when you guys were talking about the problem of evil, and if you look in the scriptures, they say that man's inherent nature is evil, but that doesn't mean that you have to choose it. That if that's
Yeah.
a starting point, you can, with awareness, you can try to make the best and most skillful, helpful choices to yourself and your fellow people and beings and the earth. And I am, I guess, a hippie freak, yoga
Yeah.
practitioning, granola crunching. But the main reason when I got into martial arts, I was like, wait a second, as much of a hippie freak as I am, I also, I'm really big fan of martial arts, Muay Thai, MMA, because I have a lot of aggression and violence that's built into me.
We
So,
all do, man.
and that's like my biggest quandary is how do I put these two together? And then I was realizing, well, I don't have to put them together, and I don't have to look for it. It's already here, and it's already who I am. It's just recognizing, like, you almost have to forget things so that you can remember them. And it's like, think about it. Every night you go to sleep, like you guys were talking about sleep. What was it? Sleep depravity or
Sleep terrors or
right.
sleep paralysis.
Right, but I've had that's crazy. Like when you want to move and you can't. It's
Yeah,
so
it sucks.
It's bizarre. But the thing with that too, we're speaking in tongues, and I used to have sleepwalking when I was younger. But every night, in a way, one might say that you have an OBE, out of body experience. Now, of course, this could be mumbo jumbo, but they
Don't
do
quote 'em
science. If they put your brain on a waveform monitor and they look at it, they can see, like you were talking about, or Hank was saying, dreamless state. Like there's that state where
You just
there's the REMs where you are dreaming, and then there's the part where you're beyond dreams.
yeah, even deeper.
Right. So there's
Yeah.
these things that we don't necessarily understand. That's what, to me, the podcast that you guys had last week, and I was listening to like your initial thing when you kicked off by yourself solo
Yeah.
with talking about spirituality and all these different things. In a way, when you search for these things, in a way, I think that drives you. And then even if you find
What do you mean drives? Like drives me towards that?
Well, it drives you towards purpose. Like you were saying, purposeness in life.
Purposelessness or
Well, I don't want, in other words, with the same thing is in complementary opposites. You have mindfulness, but you also have mindlessness.
yeah.
Right? You have awareness, and then you have unawareness. Right? So the thing is,
Polar opposite.
right? So with purposelessness, it's like when you don't have a reason. But purposeness would be something where you have a purpose. So what's the thing, a well-purposed life or something? I think Rick Warren, some pastor that had the book. It's a purpose-driven life, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So in other words, to have purpose in life. In other words, if you have something, but I think once you find it, you can't necessarily, just like the guitar, I can't play the guitar 24/7.
No.
So in a way, you lose it, and you have to now look. It's like, I think, in my opinion, life, it's like hide and seek. Like you find it, you have this peak moment, whether you're training in Muay Thai, or you're running, and your body, your legs feel like they're on a break, but you keep running.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that because
know?
when I discovered Muay Thai, it was like,
Yeah.
like praise God, because when I found I was 15 and it was like very new and
Yeah.
I was hooked on it. It was like
But then how do
my
you
drug.
stay in those moments? In other words, how do you deal with, just like they say, like, whether you go to gamble or you
Yeah.
do Muay Thai or you like to eat, whatever it is, you have these peak moments. But then, can I eat? If I love to eat, can I eat 24 hours a day,
No.
7 days a week? If I love to drink, let's say, can I drink 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Probably won't last that long doing that.
No, but it comes back to what you said about awareness. Like
Right.
awareness helps you very much appreciate things and leave them like appreciate them for the time being and
Yeah.
accept it. Like I don't know if you heard me mention about ayahuasca, the psychedelic medicine.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I did that, and that like
it's almost like an out of body experience.
Yeah.
It's like you're separate from yourself. And once again, like when I first met you, I was so surprised with all the take on fighters that I met.
yeah,
And just to give a backtrack, with the Muay Thai world, when Take On first started, it was a smaller
Take On Productions,
grassroots,
yeah.
Muay Thai promotion, local promotion, and I was helping out, doing videotape, amateur type video.
yeah, that's how we met.
And interviewing people. And the amazing thing I found was that here are these people that are going in the ring trying to take each other's heads off. Yet when they're out of the ring, they're these like philosophical, zen, like gentle people who wouldn't hurt a fly.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is awesome. I mean, this is like totally, that's the kind of cloth that I feel I'm cut from. And probably we all are. I think the challenge in life is that when you identify with only one of the polar opposites, you're only getting half of the equation, not the other half. So like I like to look at it as a metaphor. I don't have it with me, but like a coin. If you look at a coin, there's heads and there's tails.
Yeah.
But there's also the edge. So every time you have something with a love and hate, there's also the edge, which could be indifference or just neutral. Or
No, you're right.
like in Zen, they say, does a dog have enlightenment? And they say, what's the answer to that? And they say the answer is mo, which means not applicable, which is like the question. They say, so are you still shooting heroin? Now, if you never shot heroin, can I say, if I never shot, how can I say yes or no? Like if people say, are you still on your medications? If I never took medications, how do you answer that question? It's not applicable. So the thing is, a neutral state. In other words, a question that can't be answered. Like, so if you said, how many strings does that banjo have? If it's not a banjo, how do I answer the question? So the thing is with that is that the neutral mind, and I think that there's the peak moments that are good and bad, but then there's also the neutral thing that hopefully if you stayed in a good mind, then how would you know it was good? Because it would always be a solid state. So it's like with digital,
I see
you
what
have
you mean.
ones and zeros. There's no in between. But like with analog, it's a sine wave, which gradually goes up.
Yeah, but like you said, if it was always good, how would you know if it's good?
Well, that's why I think it's important to have that neutral mind. I think the Dalai Lama might have said something like that, where it's almost like if meditation is like the clouds are the thoughts in your mind, and you slow them down so that the clouds are still moving, but they're moving so slowly you don't even notice. Like the earth is turning, but we don't even notice it. The blood is coursing through your veins and your heart is beating, but we're not necessarily aware of that at all times.
Yeah, not really.
What I love about that too is that with yoga, you have your body and then you have your mind. Now, like Tank was saying, the mind, is it really in the body, or am I my mind, or am I my body? But they often say, and it's not, the masters from years and years in every religion and every society and culture pretty much say the same thing, which is that breathing is the bridge between body and mind, so that if one is aware of their breathing.
Yeah, and that's a key to meditation as well, the breath.
Right. Well, the great thing about meditation is the door is open. Happiness is an inside job, and that's, I think,
Buddha said that actually.
Yeah, so the thing is, but if the door's always open, like that's like for me, what I realized that like with stuff, ayahuasca or recreational drugs or drinking alcohol and stuff like that, while that can certainly open the door for you,
Yeah.
if the door's open, if you knew that the door was open, like imagine if there's a giant 100-foot wall and someone said, I need you to get over the wall. Now, what if you didn't look and see there's a door? You're trying to climb over the wall. So the thing is with the keys, I think the key to meditation, there's many keys, and not everybody's key fits for everybody's lock. But the whole thing, you could also say, like with the coin, the two sides of the coin and the edge, like if you only see one coin, you're missing out the whole other opposite, which is complementary. It's for you. And you're also missing the edge, which connects the two. But not only that, what if you don't even see the coin?
Damn.
Right? So that's
deep.
it. Well, so the
That's
thing is
true,
with
though.
meditation, I think meditation, what happens, like meditation can also lead to challenges in the sense that you could be so aware, you could be highly sensitized. Where, I have a brother who's also a musician, but he, instead of working as an engineer, has more actually stuck true to being a musician as a career.
Okay.
And he's very, him and I are very similar, but in some ways he's even more aware than I am. But that can lead to problems. Like if you're so aware,
Too
the
sensitive
smells
to
are
it.
too strong, sounds are too loud.
We mentioned that in the podcast as well about
Yeah.
the sensory deprivation tank.
I love
Where
that stuff.
You've done it?
I've never done it, but I know about the place. There's like a place in town, Blue Light.
That's in Queens or
it's in New York City. It's been there for
the
years,
city?
but I knew about it. And like the movie Altered States growing up. But like for me, I kind of feel like in a way, there's that, when you look at the wrong and right and then neutral, any complementary opposites, the pair, and then the neutral ground, which is neither, when you break that down in a way, you almost don't need to. It's like a car. If a car's running, you don't need to put the key in. I'm not saying I don't need that. I would love
it's another form of meditation, really.
Yeah, I would love to do
It's
it.
really meditation.
I would
because
love.
you're laying there.
Yeah, I would always love to. And also now that with no light or minimal sound and floating, they say it's like being in the womb again.
Yeah, Tim mentioned that it's equivalent of 15 hours of sleep, 1 hour.
Okay, so let's jump off on this for a second. I can hear about all days. Like there's this guy, the bulletproof, the hacking your
Dave
life,
Asprey,
right?
Dave
so which is
Asprey,
cool.
yeah.
I listen to some of his stuff and Tim Ferriss, and like I said before, with certain podcasts, it might just put me to sleep unless it's every podcast might not be exciting for every person.
No, you're right.
But the thing is, with hacking your life, like there's a guy, Rich Roll, who's the vegan runner.
I listened to him.
And he was saying like, well, why do you want to hack your life? And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with, like, there's all these shortcuts. Like, oh, you can do what Buddhist monks would normally take 30 years of meditation in a cave. Now you can do it with this special audio clip, and you can do it in 30 seconds. Why would I want to do that? I know shortcuts I think are good. Like if you told me, Paul, if you run and lift weights and do yoga and you eat, a good amount of produce every day, 5 to 7 servings of fruits and vegetables, and you get a good night's sleep and meditate, the quality of your life is going to improve. I would say, okay, I think I'll try that. Why not? But if you're going to tell me, listen, Paul, I can give you this pill, and if you take this pill, you won't have to exercise, you won't have to sleep, you won't have to eat right, and your quality of life will improve. Well, most people would just want to take the pill and not do the work. But I don't want to do that. Now, hacking my life, I'm interested in trying to do different things, but I'm not looking to beat any type of system. Like briefly when I got into health and fitness, after years of, working in the music industry and being run down, I got into it. And then I got so into it, I got certified to be a nutritional consultant and a fitness trainer.
Wow.
And I was going to do that. And my wife hit the nail on the head. She was like, people want to look good. They want to feel good. They want to be healthy. But nobody wants to do the work.
Nobody.
So I couldn't. Basically,
It's hard.
I had a few clients. I had something called PK FAM, which is Paul Katz Fitness and Nutrition. And it basically belly flopped. And I think like the company I worked for was sold out to a larger company. And I got like a payout. And I decided instead of going with my boss who was buying the company, I decided to start my own business. And he was like, look, he's like, I'm proud that you're doing this. And even if it fails, at least you can say, hey, you tried. So the thing is, like the wife said, so the thing is with shortcuts, I don't want to cheat or beat the system. Unless,
today in society, we're, bombarded by instant gratification. So
right. That is true.
Most people want that because of the way society pushes it on us.
But once again, if we look at the golden rule if you study all cultures, societies, at the heart of them all is to do good to others and to yourself, and not cheating, lying, and stealing.
Everybody knows that.
Typically, you shouldn't cheat, lie, or steal unless the end of effect of needs to be done in order to, you need to do that in order to save something worse happening. But the thing is also, I don't know if you guys touched on it on the last podcast, but what's amazing is I don't know if you ever heard of Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth and The Hero's Journey. Well, he's got this thing where basically, and if you study and look at all these cultures and societies, everybody has the same story, like the archetypical story, which is where there's a hero. So there's a person who's in this situation and there's some sort of villain. Now the villain could be icy weather. It could be another person. It could be an addiction or whatever it is. But the hero is up against this villain and then triumphs over the villain. So the hero's journey is that it's all about, hopefully, good prevailing against evil. Now, I don't think that we can eliminate evil, but we certainly can try to reduce it the best we can. And then, that's the thing, is that, like the last podcast, it got into a little dark moment where I felt like there were the peaks and the valleys of the podcast, where all of a sudden, like, everybody was on the horses, then someone put the horses away. Then at that moment, it was like, where's the horses? Like, in other words, there's these evil people that do these horrific things, and you see it all the time. I mean, look, the company I work for, we transport video signals all around the world. So anything that happens in the news, you can't miss it. It's right there. You walk into the room, and it's a monitor wall full of monitors with all sorts of TV programs.
Yeah.
So you can't miss that kind of stuff that's going on. But I think that it's going on, and you could try to ignore it, like Tank was saying about Times Square and the news. The funny thing is, you want to hear something with a Tank story. I was on the subway one day, and I bumped into Tank.
Really?
On the train.
Recently?
And I think maybe last year or so. And at first, I think he didn't really know he didn't recognize me at first. So we started talking, and then all of a sudden, I think then he was like, wait a second. Like, cause we had some conversations during the take on, I met him, interviewing him, pre and post fight. And then one of the nights, I think we ended up taking the train home from the event, to, from where it was to another place. So we got into some, pretty heavy conversations. Similar to what we're,
I missed that place too.
Yeah, the 7 Train Theater.
Oh my God.
But the funny thing was, the second, like, when you think about it, when you see people, the context or the place that you see them may not be familiar, so you may not recognize someone depending on where you are. Like, a lot of times with the kids, I would see other parents, but then when you saw those people, like at the supermarket without the kid, you might not say, or like you see someone from work in a different environment, you may not be, you'd be like, wait. So I think when I saw Tank, at first he's like, well, who the hell is this nut job talking to me? But then he was like, oh, wait a second. Okay, right. So, the funny thing about that, though, when he was talking about Times Square, it's totally true, because I work right near Times Square as well. And when you get off, like with the subway system and the people, it's so amazing. I mean, it's so many people. It's so contrary. You can't stop and shake everybody's hand and have a conversation.
Yeah, it's really...
So it is kind of overwhelming. But I think the thing with that, it's a metaphor for us. Like, if you think of our body, there's all these cells and systems within the body that are, right now, there's all sorts of stuff going on. Yeah, so it's amazing. Like, when I think of meditation and yoga, martial arts, there's this unseen force, like the light we can't see, that's coursing through our veins and making our heart beat.
So,
that somehow brings our life.
That's a good way to describe what you do, though.
Well, I don't, on the other hand, I would like to say I don't do anything, because there is no I. So I always say stuff like we did this and we did that. Like, I'm on the train. I'm not on the train to the city. We're on the train. I'm not driving to come see you. We're driving because I'm with all these other cars that are driving. There is no I. In other words, like we talked about Alan Watts, right?
Yeah.
You guys talked about him. When I say we talked about Alan, because I felt like when I listened to that podcast, like I was there in the podcast, even though I wasn't there, but it was like taking place. And if you could say that everything almost exists. Now, with science, they've even done those studies where when they have test equipment, the experiment is different than when there's no test equipment.
Yeah.
So it's almost like whatever's being experimented on knows something. Right?
I mean, I gotta put a quote in. I don't know exactly how it went, but it's something similar. Like, if I am I and you are you, and I am you and you are I,
then who am I?
Then if there's no I, who are you? Something along those lines.
Or do you ever hear of Maimonides?
The hospital?
There's a hospital, but it was named after.
That's where I got surgery.
It was named after a famous philosopher, and basically what he.
Really?
He was a scholar, philosopher, and many things among that. But what I think he said, or maybe I'm mixing them up. Maybe it was a different. Maybe it was Hillel. I think he said, if I'm not for me, then who is? And if I'm for you, then who's for me? And if not now, when? So like another guy saw something where someone was saying, Where are you? I'm nowhere. What do you mean nowhere? Now here.
Yeah.
Nowhere. Now here.
Oh.
So like I am when I say a lot of times I'll say we do this and people are like, what do you mean we? Well, like, me, myself, and I. I mean, first of all, we have multiple. If you think about it, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking with you.
Huh.
And then there's the different parts of me, like something happened to me, right? How do I treat myself? I go here. So there's that different assets of oneself. So in a way, we are almost like more than one person. Because, and if you even believe in whatever belief, which we can't necessarily define, it's like light you can't see. But what I believe, is that there's that higher power, and then there's the ego, and that those two somehow they don't have to exist because they are existing. So that's like my trouble was like, how do I put these two things together? And then I realized, wait a second, they're together. How do I stop taking them apart? Why do I keep taking them apart? Why do I keep, but and I'll tell you why I do, because as a human being, that's our nature, to make things wrong so that we can make them right. In other words, you want to find something, how do you find it? Well, think
What
about
do you mean make things wrong so I can make it
no,
right?
if you want to make things right in life, if they're already right, then you don't need to make them right.
If it ain't broken, don't fix it.
That's true. But then by the same token, if you want to find something, you almost have to lose it. In other words, unless I want to keep my guitar with me 24/7, I have to put the guitar away so that I can get back to it. So I think that what happens, it's almost like amnesia, where you forget these things, and then something will happen. You'll remember, oh, man.
I mean, you can also use another word for that. You don't have to necessarily lose it. I
Right.
mean, like I could set it to the side.
Well, what do they call recovery or discovery or uncovering?
Yeah.
It's like what Tank was saying, too, is that when you talk about language, and I totally agree with him, too, is that when you read the scriptures or philosophical stuff, whether it's the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, the Quran, any of these, you can read it word for word, literally, or you can read between the lines. And like what Tank was saying was like a lot of the words that you're saying, in a way, language is all we have, but it's not all we have, because, of course, how you say something, there's the tone of your voice, there's the timing.
Yeah, the timing,
and
the
then
tone,
the connection that you have with someone
the
while you're
vibe
saying,
you have behind it, the intention you have behind it.
So
many things play a role. It's crazy.
But then it's also it could be an easy thing to be misinterpreted. And then what do they talk about in television? They're breaking the wall. Like you and I were connecting, right? But then you look at the camera, you say, by the way, for you out there, we just want to let you in on the story. And you go back to you ever see like in TV, they're never supposed to do that, because when you're watching TV, it's always supposed to be, like with sitcoms or shows.
Yeah. Supposed
Well,
to
it depends. Like if it's a talk show, they are talking to the viewer. But like with a regular like sitcom or drama, it's supposed to just be happening. They don't they call it breaking the wall. Where like someone will look over to the camera and say, for anybody that doesn't realize, and blah, 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 and then they'll go back to the scene,
Yeah, some shows do it, though. Like, I forgot that one, Happy Days or something like that.
Well, that's like the thing. There is no rules, but the one thing I love, which I think Bashar said, who's this guy, Daryl Anka, who channels this higher power, Bashar it's called. And he said there's 3 laws. The first law is that everything is energy, meaning we're energy. Everything is energy. The second law is that nothing can be destroyed. It only changes forms, right? Which is that's actually the law of thermodynamics. And then the third rule. So the first rule is everything's energy. Second rule is energy can't be destroyed. The third rule is everything changes, except for the first 2 rules. The first 2 rules never change. So for me, like I love when you guys were talking about the stuff. Yeah, it was like this out there conversation. It was rambling and it was going and coming back. And to some people that are listening to us, they could be like, what are those guys on? What are they talking about? And then someone else might be like, oh my God, that feels like that's my brain talking to me. So like when I was listening to the thing, I took like 3 pages of notes, and often the voices in my head, the voices in my head, I'll be on the train and I'll have some sort of revelation or thought, and I'll write down stuff, there you go. I noticed that there was some ambience there. But like I'll have thoughts that are going in my head, and I'll capture them to paper. But then I realize that you take the paper, here's a script, and you throw the script away, because can't, like, every time you ask me something, could I say, okay, when Jay asked me this, okay, I'm
Nah,
gonna say this.
no scripts over here.
Well, but the
I
thing
mean,
is,
you can
you
look
can.
back and like if notes. Like actually forgot mine,
but like with podcasts, for example, it could be just a conversation with people. Like what I love about, let's say, JRA,
yeah,
Joe Rogan, like people on podcasts will connect with each other. It's a real, genuine, present moment where people are connecting.
yeah,
And then there's other times where people sort of, you drift off. It's like lose the beat, you come back to the
yeah.
beat.
Even with that show, and that show's
Right.
been on for 5 years.
And they say the difference with that is if you have millions of people listening, the conversations can be slightly different than if you have dozens of people. So the thing is that the interesting thing about that is with connecting with people, in life, it is somewhat scripted, but it's also somewhat improvised. And as a musician, I can play a song that was already written, right? Or I can just improvise and make the song up as it goes along. And that's as far as I think that's the interesting thing with life is that to a certain degree, it's almost like a movie that you can control. Like if we go back to the Serenity Prayer, there's certain things in your life you can't control, but you can control how you interact with them.
You can control your reaction.
So like even when you contacted me about this, it's almost like a nervous energy about it, being excited about it, but also like, oh man, what do I say? I mean, there's so much I could
What do
probably
you say?
and like with
Dude, you
listening,
could talk for days, man.
that's what I'm saying. You could talk for days, but by the same token, if you encapsulate it, and like I don't know if it was maybe it was someone on Joe Rogan or Mike Marler. It was another Live Life Aggressively. They were talking about how like people could have these amazing conversations, but then when you turn the camera on, they sort of clam up. So
Yeah.
in life, and the thing is like to relax and to cut loose. So that we get back to like stuff like meditation or Muay Thai, yoga, music. You have these amazing activities that you do, but then what do you do when you're not? Like, what do you do when you're stuck in traffic or waiting in line? I love this guy. His name is Thich Nhat Hanh.
Han?
Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a famous Buddhist monk. He's based out of France with the Plum Rose Monastery. I think he's got a bunch of books.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think his name is hard to pronounce, but it's Thich. It's like Tchich, Nhat Hanh. He's he's written books. I mean, you could probably look him up.
Yeah,
but,
I would
but
need
he
to know
was
how
saying,
to spell that.
But he was saying stuff like when you try Thich.
Thich.
Right.
Oh, I found it.
So
Thich Nhat
he
Hanh.
talks about stuff like when you're doing the dishes, like that can be like a Zen moment. Every moment.
I agree. Some people, they find like it's very like almost like therapeutic for cleaning. Like my mother, I'll see her clean. She's in her zone, like listening
it's a
to
metaphor
music.
for life, and you're doing that stuff, and you're getting in that zone. So, but the thing with the zone is that how do we stay in the zone? Well, here's probably the answer to that question is you don't stay in the zone. You can't stay in the zone.
It's not sustainable, really.
Or you're always in the zone. You just don't realize it. That's why I'm saying you have to forget to remember. You have to almost lose the beauty and the awesomeness of life so that you can recover it. In other words, if I just walked around, oh, everything's beautiful, everything's awesome, then
yeah, but it doesn't mean like I lost it. Like you know how to get back in the zone.
Well, hopefully you do.
Well, I can't speak for everyone.
Right. You would choose, make choices and do activities that would bolster you getting back into the zone. That would help you bring you back into, like I think the last podcast you guys remember, the eternal now. And that's true. I have this watch here.
Is a tattoo?
To be reminded.
Wait, let me see that actually.
It's set to now. I mean, I might need to get a digital one, right? Because it's kind of, a lot of people think it's a compass. But
it's a tattoo of the time is now on his wrist.
It doesn't say.
That's awesome.
It just says now.
Oh, it says now? Like,
it just says now. It doesn't say the time is now. So you said N-O-W and then N-O-W, but it almost looks like east and west. It's almost
looks like a compass.
Yeah. But the thing is with the moment, that I would like almost, the eternal moment. It's true. It's almost like that moment keeps going. And like I think Tank was saying, if you get agonized over the past of things you did or didn't do, and then you get stressed about things that are going to happen, where do those exist? They only exist in right now. Like we can talk about, okay, when we first met, we can reminisce about growing up and things, how you got into Muay Thai, how I got into yoga and martial arts. But it exists in the moment right now where reminiscing about the past. And then if we think about what's ahead for us in life, it's also in this moment here.
Yeah.
So and then this moment here, we can't even hold this moment because it's moving along. So it's almost like trying to hold the water in your hand. So what is the thing like with I think for karate or judo, one of those things, you have to hold an egg for 24 hours. Like even when you take the shower, you got to hold the egg, and you can't break the egg. You never heard of that? I think it's
I think I've seen it in
Shotokan karate or something.
a karate movie I've seen.
Yeah, like you have to hold this egg for like 2 days. So you have to sleep with it. You have to take a shower holding the egg, and you can never let go. So it's basically, what is it? It's a mindfulness. But what I'm saying with the moment is you can't hold on to the moment. And there's a great Buddhist quote, which is, "There's nothing worth holding on to." And it's not that nothing has value. It's you can hold on to it.
Yeah,
so like with the guitar, I can't do yoga 24 hours a day. Or I guess I could, as long as I'm breathing. I mean, what is yoga?
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's union, and we're all looking to be reunited with goodness and
yeah, we all want
presence,
good. We all want
and
good.
just to be present in the body in the moment. But with all this technology and all these different things, what do they have? The thing FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah, now everybody's focused on buying material things, and now it's like we're all, and with podcasting here, now it's like this is a commodity in a way.
Right. Well,
like how entertainment used to be, which was telling stories and conversations.
But we're still telling stories and having conversation. But the thing too is a lot of times people, it's like I was at college with our son when he first went there, and he made the observation that, we're at a coffee shop and there's, a couple of dozen people, and everybody, even the people that are together, are on their little devices, their phones, their laptops. Even people that are sitting next to each other aren't really even connecting.
Wow.
So, but if we think of that as a metaphor for connecting to ourself, so that's I think the most important thing you could do is hopefully connect yourself, love yourself, be able to be with yourself, so that then you can.
Wait, so you're saying when they're with their phones, they're connecting with themselves?
Well, they're not really connected. That's the problem.
It's really like almost like a distraction.
Exactly.
It's not really connecting.
And they talk
with yourself.
about even and I'm in the business of entertainment, and they talk about, I forgot where I read it years ago, but they said entertainment is entering attainment. In other words, everybody, you have this bliss and this amazing thing, and then through material stuff and so on, we try to distract ourselves from this beautiful thing that's there. But I would like to look at it too, is that we live in a gross physical world. We have physical bodies. So stuff, in the words of George Carlin, was like, it's other people's stuff. It's not stuff. It's, crap. But your stuff is stuff, You want to get more and more stuff. But the thing with stuff is that as long as we live in the world and have a physical body, we're going to want to have stuff. We need to eat. We need to have clothes on our back.
But those are like primal necessities,
Well, what's really important, and I always look at it too, is want and need. Like, if you need to do something, you're going to do it. But if you only want, it's not enough. So if it comes to, let's say, improving your health through, changing your dietary choices, or improving your health through incorporating some sort of physical activity. What's the thing they call what is it? NEPA, non-exercise physical activity. In other words, you don't have to go do Muay Thai or yoga every day. You could walk up. You could walk, like with all the phones that everybody has. You can walk your 5,000, 10,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
You could. So the
I
thing
do
is,
something like. Oh snap! Goose is in the building.
All right.
Hold on, let me plug this in for you.
What's up, man?
All right, how you doing?
Okay.
Oh, you're on the couch or you're there?
Yeah, I'm right here, man. Don't worry about it.
Oh, you.
Great. So
What's up, guys? Oh, sorry
Can
to
you
interrupt,
pass
guys.
those headphones to monitor his?
There is no interruption because Goose,
all good.
it's like we were talking, Jay and I were talking about the never-ending conversation. And like when him and I first met, we got into some crazy out there conversations. Plus, I did the same with Tank, and as well as with you. And listening to last week's podcast was incredible because it was like being inside my own brain. It was like a continuation of this never-ending conversation, which Jay and I were talking about. On one hand, could be a bunch of mumbo jumbo, and on the other hand, to people that it's interesting to, could be the most amazing topic. Like I was listening to your guys' podcast from last week, and I have like 4 pages.
You can move that if you want, like this way.
4 pages of notes.
Like if you speak that way, you can.
Yeah.
Move it. Yeah.
So, but the thing is, like, there's all these. with the conversations, there's all these things that to some people it's all, like, in my opinion, it's all relative. It's based on experience and identifying with things or not. And like we were talking about earlier, there's the complementary opposites is something that I've been thinking about a lot. And how like you go to a hotel and they get complimentary coffee, complimentary internet, right?
Yo.
But complementary opposites, it's like, so you have something good in your life, guess what you're going to get with it? Bad. That doesn't sound like something I want to be complimented with, but guess what? What if we don't have a choice? What if the nature of life? And I remember, like, when you guys were on that podcast, there was a dark moment where there was like a peak where it was a connecting. You guys were talking about being present and all sorts of amazing, really
because we
profound
kept
stuff.
rambling on to other things.
Right, but then you would get into stuff like the problem of evil, which is definitely a problem where you have people that get so, like, if there's that middle ground where when you need to do good things, you do good things, and accidentally maybe you do bad things, but you hopefully keep coming back to that middle point. But some people just go bad. And they just go so bad, like the show Breaking Bad. You get to the point where you're so far down that road.
Oh, you saw that show?
Oh, yeah. So
Awesome,
you get so
right?
far down the road that you can't come back necessarily. And I think you had brought up a point, like, with some of these killers and people, like, what's wrong? Now, we don't know. Like I was saying before, that I work as an engineer with systems, and equipment. With the human body, there could be something with the wiring or hormonal or neurotransmitters with the brain that causes us to do certain things. There's just so much stuff we don't understand.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you and we were on that bus trip to Atlantic City, and we just started. And I don't even know how we started to talk.
Yeah, I heard you guys didn't stop talking at all.
Well, we started, and the funny thing about that, and if you could go back in time, I'm not even sure how it started, but we basically, and what we were talking about too is with the collective consciousness when we talk about, like, when you reference Alan Watts and stuff like that, with the ego and the other thinker and thoughts and this and that. In a way, we're all part of something. I think that when people recognize that in each other, it's an amazing synchronicity that happens. So I think that when you and I were on the bus at Atlantic City, we could have easily just sat next to each other, you on your phone, me on my phone, doing our separate things, but somehow we connected.
Yeah. It was like I don't know, almost just something that just had to happen. It's weird.
Yeah. But so, like I was saying to Jay before too, like nowadays, a lot of people are just, they don't even connect with themselves. They're so busy doing stuff with their phone or their computer that they're not even able to connect with themselves.
Or they use it to hide behind it. Like, I see somebody. Oh.
Right. So, like, the thing is that maybe they say the hardest person to be with, and the person that you're going to need to be with for the rest of your life, the most important is yourself.
Definitely, that's true.
So I think that's the challenge in life, is how do we do that? But I think when you connect with like-minded people, it can be a real positive reaffirmation. And I've had the good fortune of like, who's CM Punk? He says luck is for losers. So
yeah, the
I like
wrestler,
to believe that too.
pro wrestler.
Well, like luck. What is luck? I mean, well, there's good luck and there's bad luck, but the point is that when you connect with people in your life, it can help you to reconnect with yourself, and it will also help you to renew your faith in humanity.
Yeah, and somebody else, like, for example, last week I told something to Tank so he could help me see what something means, and I've learned something just through him. Even though it's a podcast, it's not. I can learn too. It's like,
right. We can all learn, and that's the thing, is I think that whenever we can learn in life, you may have already known it, but you just didn't realize it. But then I think you almost have to forget it so that you can learn it again. In other words, maybe it's the same lesson over and over in different variations.
Could be, yeah.
And then when you bounce it off somebody, you can see, if it works or what it means. You can, like, through explaining something to someone, you can be like, wait a second, maybe that's not actually right. Or, you can see what it looks like. Because if like I have a lot of conversations in my head, and like you guys were talking about last time, is that the voices in the head, right? And when you think about meditation, you could be slowing the voices down. But like I was saying to Jay earlier, maybe sometimes we don't want to turn them down or slow them down. Sometimes maybe we want to turn them up and hear what they're saying at certain times. And other times you want to bring them down. And I could definitely say that I wouldn't doubt it if I walked the line of being insane, but who isn't?
I'm crazy.
I mean, being a human being, in a way, it's a sickness, or it's also a condition. I think George Carlin said it was a sexually transmitted terminal illness. But that's also what we know. And like I was saying to Jay earlier, there's so much we don't know. The equipment that I work with for my job, it's light that you can't see because the wavelength exceeds what the human eye can see. So it's a great metaphor in a way for life. Like there's this stuff that happens and is happening that we just don't understand. Like we believe that we're born and we live a certain amount of years and we die and that's it. But we just don't. Who says we have the test equipment to prove where we were or what we were? Like I was saying to Jay earlier, it's a great three-piece law, which is the first law. This is Bashar. This is a guy who does channeling. He said the first rule is, or law is that everything is energy. The second law is that energy can't be destroyed; it can only change forms, which is I think thermodynamics law.
Yeah,
and then
that's
the third law is everything changes except the first two laws.
Yeah.
So the thing is, what I'm saying is that there's stuff we know, but there's so much we don't know. But But I think it comes back to being present in the moment, and that's like what was amazing with the podcast you guys was that there were parts where you weren't present in the moment, and then you came back into the moment. So it's almost like you're on a horse, you get thrown off the horse, and then.
But at the same time, it's still being in the moment itself. You know, like the fact that we'll be in the moment, then we'll speak about certain topics that are so complex, and it's like, damn, they're not really in the moment, but that itself is the moment.
Right.
You feel me? So it's all part of that, and you know, you can go through life just questioning the whole entire existence, and you get depressed, you go through insanity and all kinds of things, but after a while, you're like, hey, this type of intellect is never gonna go away, so I need to learn how to like just be that.
Right.
And then now I just experience life extremely intense. Like I can go outside and just like hug the you know, the weather almost. It feels like I'm just like in love with the weather, even though it's freezing. And I'm like, wow, like a molecular universe of cells is like, you know, just flowing through my whole body. And I'm just like, wow, this is great.
Well, isn't that weird? Because
you
you know,
know?
when I was coming in, there was a couple of guys that were at the lobby, and they were saying how I guess they have joint replacements or they're metal, so with cold weather that can often affect that. And they were, you know, cursing the weather. So it's amazing what you just said is that, you know, now of course, you know, if we had hip replacements, we may feel differently too. But the point is, I think that
I almost had one.
But the thing with that is that I think that what Goose just hit on.
Wait, this is for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
I
want
could.
you- yeah,
All right.
check it out. It may need to defrost. It may not be ready
Yeah,
to
it's
drink
not
for a
ready.
while. But what Goose
Thank
was
you.
hitting on was that with the weather, and anything that happens in our life, you know, it's a question of sometimes we, instead of denying it, it may be better to be one with it because you already are one with it. You just don't know it. In other words, we can't escape. Like, and my whole thing is like, how can I meet life as life comes to me the best I can? So if it's cold out, you know what? Yeah, I'm the same way. You know, a lot of times when I get off work, I'll walk part of the way home because it's part of my physical regimen is to try to walk, you know, 5 or 6 miles a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love to run, but my joints don't love when I run. You know, and I have arthritis in my hips and my spine.
Wow.
And the cold weather, I can feel that. But I'll tell you, when I threw eating a certain way, which is more of a caloric reduction, optimum nutrition. In other words, eating food, no food that has nutritionally bankrupt foods like candy.
Yeah, like you want to nourish your body
Right.
with nutrient dense
But if you eat a
foods.
little bit less, they've done studies, and science shows that if you eat a little bit under your caloric
Intake.
requirement, you actually will feel better. You'll have more energy. So
Really?
like I do that, and through
How-
doing that and doing daily yoga, like a physical therapist said to me, listen, you know, it's a lot of money to pay for physical therapy. She's like, you want a way around that? She's got 2 words for you: do yoga. So you do
Wow.
yoga, and then you deal with these aches and pains, and you somehow make these. So like I'll do these walks, and what I got off on that tangent there was when I get off work, it might be snowing, and it may be viciously, bitterly cold, but I'll still walk 2 miles in the cold.
Nice.
Why not? You don't
Yeah.
listen. Why would I try to, like I was saying to Jay when I was younger, it was about only seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. But then you realize that complementary opposites. You know, you can't have one without the other. And like Jay was saying, if you only had one, then the value of that one would be decreased. But the problem with that is, like, if you have peaks and valleys in life, if you have really high moments, you're probably gonna have really low moments. So if you make the peaks lower and you're more tempered, then the good won't be as good, but the bad won't be as bad.
Yeah, but that's no way to live, in my opinion.
Well,
I like to fully involve myself in something. If
Right.
it's good, that doesn't mean, like, for example, winning a fight.
Right.
I'm not gonna celebrate like I won the lottery,
Right. But you
but
should
I'll
revel.
appreciate the win. You know
But
what I'm
now,
saying?
can you celebrate the loss and the fact that you gave it your all, you did everything you could, and you met life on its terms, and whether you got, like you were saying before, when fighting amateurs where there's not as much at stake,
Yeah.
the win or the loss it's not critical whether you won or lost. It's all about just getting in the ring, doing the dance.
Yeah, I mean,
Right? Jay knows, right? Because as fighting as an amateur, was it about the win or loss, or was it more
That's
about
true.
just doing it?
Yeah.
no, I
And
agree.
as a musician, I've played gigs where I promoted and handed out thousands of flyers, and 2 people showed up, you know, in a city of New York where there are millions of people. But would that stop me from the passion? Like, I remember listening to an interview with this guy, John McLaughlin, who's a famous jazz and world ethnic musician. Like, he fused jazz with Indian music. And his thing was like, it's not what, you know, when you play music or any kind of art form, it's not what you give to the art of the music necessarily. It's what the music gives to you.
Wow.
So like when you do martial arts, or when I go for a run or do yoga, it's in these things. For me, I've gotten more high doing those activities than I have on any kind of drugs or alcohol. But the problem then we
Yeah.
talked about is what happens when you come down. What happens when you get out of the Muay Thai ring or out of the gym, or you get off the yoga mat? Now what do? How do you live with just the normal and the mundane?
Acceptance.
And like you were saying with your mom when she gets into cleaning.
Yeah.
So it's like this guy, Thich Nhat Hanh, was saying, or I think it was a Zen
Yeah, I
master.
actually found them too.
Well, he was saying, like, what do you do after enlightenment? Well, before enlightenment, you chop the wood, you wash the dishes, you carry this stuff. And then after enlightenment, what do? Chop the wood, you carry the
Yeah.
dishes. So,
you
you know,
continue.
so it's like you were saying that you're totally present and in the moment of whatever it is. But if everything's special, then even special loses its value. So I think what you're saying, connecting with this stuff, it's an amazing thing. But I think that it's probably not possible to
but-
do that 100% of the time, because we forget it and we get into our ego.
Yeah.
And we,
I know what you're talking about, but it's just like, you know, Bruce Lee says, remain in a state of constant learning. That is already automatic,
Right.
whether you learn correctly or not. But technically, the fact that if you come into my perception, I just absorb so much anyways, you know, regardless, is a form of learning. So, you know, everything kind of just flows that way.
right. But do you believe that, like we were saying before, I was saying to Jay, in a way that we almost need to forget that so that we can remember? We almost need to lose that Zen so that we can then find it again. And then when you find it, when you hold on to it, how long can you hold? Like with life, you could say that there's 2 things, like holding on and letting go. In like Buddhism, they talk about attachment and aversion. Like aversion is stuff, I want to get rid of this thing as soon as possible. Attachment, I want to hold on to this. But the thing with that is that, how is it possible to, even if something's good, how long can we hold on to it? It's like, I don't know if you remember, and Jay was saying he saw in a movie, but I remember in martial arts, there was the discipline where you had to hold an egg for like 2 days without breaking it. So you have to take a shower, you have to sleep with it and still hold it. Now you could cheat, but if you cheated, then you're only cheating yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the thing is with the, I think the Zen moments, I think it's like life is like peaks and valleys, and it's recognizing. Like when I was listening to that podcast, I told Jay a lot of times I'll put podcasts on when I want to go to sleep. I'll put some Dave Asprey or Tim Ferriss, you know, because you know what, if it's interesting, but if you're kind of tired, you just hear it's not. Sometimes it's interesting, sometimes it's not. Sometimes
So you wake up with it still playing, or
I'll just fall asleep right on the floor, and I'll be like, you know, it depends. If it's really riveting, and even guys like Joe Rogan or Tim Ferriss, everything they say is not going to be fascinating.
No.
It depends what state of your mind you're in. Whether you were, so it's like when we were on the bus to Atlantic City, maybe that day you were in a bad mood, you just didn't feel like talking about it, then we probably wouldn't have connected.
No, you're
that's
right.
True.
But like you said, it's like with the Bruce Lee, to bring it back to Bruce, with the water, be like water. If you look at water, it's amazing. Like, how is it that it freezes, it melts,
Has so many forms.
and then it evaporates into the I mean,
Yeah.
you know, so it's almost like we can be like that. And we probably, like you said, we are that, but we just don't realize it?
I mean, everything, it's funny. Everything's fundamental, right? Like there's a start and a finish.
Right.
It's like I feel like when it comes to nature, we're very similar to how nature is right now. It's just completely different, and it's evolved in so many spectrums. You know, like dragonflies, and in the time of dinosaurs were the size of alligators and stuff.
Whoa.
Because there was like more oxygen in the air. You know, so it can go really, really extreme.
Well, that's what we're talking about with awareness. Is that, like I said to Jay earlier, that even like he said, well, who are you? What do you do? When I was saying that, you know, with the mumbo jumbo disclaimer, that even flies or living things have awareness, just different levels. Now, imagine if there was a dragonfly the size of an alligator. Who's to say that that dragonfly the size of an alligator doesn't feel a longing for something?
That's true, yeah.
Maybe the dragonfly is tired. Like we look at these moths, and at home I have a light like that where
it's tired.
you have all these little flies that end up there, or these bugs. They go to the light. Are they going to it for the heat? Are they going to it for the they're hypnotized by the light? They just end up
Maybe
there.
It's alluring. Or...
But how do we know that these dragonflies the size of and the dinosaurs themselves, maybe they had some level of awareness or consciousness?
Funny you mentioned that, because some people, when they would do ayahuasca, they would transfer into the animal's consciousness.
Right. So then here's the question: if we say, "Who are you?" What if we're consciousness? We're awareness.
Yeah.
In other words, before being Goose or Paul or Jay, before the personality, the personal history, the beliefs, the thoughts, the feelings, what lies before that or after that, beyond that, may just be unadulterated awareness or consciousness.
The funny thing is like every decision in from your generations of family has dictated you being here.
Right.
Like everything. Somebody down the lines of your bloodline could have just not met. And you would have never been born.
That's true. Yeah.
One little decision, one little decision,
yeah.
or even the internet and a lot of things that just came into being predicted things. You know, like there's people getting married over the internet and having kids. You know, like it's a lot of things that determine the outcome of us being here. It's really crazy.
Yeah.
But
well, it's almost like it's like like winning the lottery. The chance that you are.
Yeah, it's like a lottery. Even being a sperm cell is like a lottery.
Yeah. But the thing that's always on is consciousness. When you sleep, when you wake up, it's always there.
Well, it's like whether you tune, like, you know, with the old days, you know how they had radio stations? I mean, I think they still do, but it's different. Like the old radios, you had the knob where you had to turn it and dial it in. So it's almost like with awareness, you can dial in different frequencies.
That's what it feels like.
See, I like to try to make the ego as small as possible, and I try not to use, like, I think Tim or Tank or you might be saying with me, this my stuff.
That was Tank, yeah.
Me, I did this, I did that. I like to look at it more from a collective part. So, like, I didn't come here and do the podcast. We did it together.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, where's Goose? You may come, may not, but that's like the idea, you know. Actually, I watched a couple of the earlier podcasts with some guys that I don't remember their names, but some of your friends, a couple of them were like also Muay Thai fighters. And
thinking that, and we do have the compassion and all that stuff by nature, and there is like a moral sense to it. But ultimately, we can really decide our future altogether or individually how we want to, what's good and bad to us subjectively.
But
like
now, what about ethics? No, there's morality. Let's say morality could be a mental construct that humans create.
Yeah.
So do you think ethics, similarly, is how you act upon your morality, is also a man-made construct as well?
Yeah. I mean, even when we get it from, too, like, everything's man-made already, you know?
Okay, but then if we look at, let's say, your existence and being actions and so on, and then Jay's and mine, if they're circles, they may overlap with each other. So if I can create my future, I can't necessarily create your future. And if my future and your future or our presence merge or come together, like I was saying to Jay, the serenity prayer, which is, you know, the courage to accept things you can't change, the strength to change the things you can, the wisdom to tell the difference, I think is something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
So, like, in other words, what I believe is that, we can create our life through thoughts and actions to a certain degree. But I think there's also another unknown factor that we can't control. We can control how we interact.
That's true, yeah.
Like, I can't, with my mind, three of us could make it snow more, make it snow more. But
Yeah.
And
No, I get what you're saying.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
agree with that.
So I think that it's an interaction, and that in a way, it's how, it's not necessarily what's happening, it's how. It's like, and so I think that you're right. I think the power of the mind is amazing. It's probably unlimited within,
Yeah.
within limits somehow, which doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's just funny. Like, we had people, like, I like to use Gordon Borglum as an example. He sculpted a stone mountain in Mount Rushmore as well.
Right.
And it's just like, damn, like one brain sculpted a whole mountain,
That's
two
insane,
mountains.
Yeah.
And that's like so extreme. And that's our race. You know what I'm saying? We come from that.
Right.
So like our potential is like can be amazing, especially where we're heading towards in the technology,
That's a good point.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless.
Well, that's like when
Yeah.
when Jay said to who am I? I was like, I like to often say I'm possible. I'm potential. In other words, I have the potential,
Yeah.
to do nothing or to do something or anything almost.
But let's
the only
bring-
limit is your imagination. But I think within
But not everybody though. I think it's also a genetic thing, man.
Right,
Some
right.
people just are naturally gonna be better or the best.
Yeah, that plays a role.
And it's just like some people. It's funny. I literally feel like in our time, it's purely about inequality, and in the aspects
inequality
of
or inequality.
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 Yeah, because it's just like some people just are not talented.
Right.
I'm not saying
Or,
that.
or do you think that everybody's talented, but it's a certain, it's finding your talent, perhaps?
Perhaps it's finding the talent, but what if
You're saying some people are just don't have any talents.
Purely, I can't say that.
Right.
I definitely can't say
Everyone plays a role in life, though.
that. And everybody does play a
Right.
role. But hey, what if you're one out of seven, whatever the populace is in the world, but
Right.
that one person that just has that genetic deformality,
Right.
physical
Well, that's a big
deformality.
point.
Maybe the skill set.
That you're just done. Like you just
Right. Yeah.
exist to like do nothing almost. Like your
Right,
skin's
but-
messed up. And your brain's messed up
Right.
chemically. You
Right.
can't operate anymore.
But
But
maybe the talent you're developing could be like your newborn.
Or the other half is that,
Perhaps.
they say there's a greatest thing that I love too, is that they say there's that riddle, like what do rich people want, what do poor people have plenty of, what is greater than God, what is worse than the devil? Nothing is the answer. So and the funny thing is, like we were talking about earlier with life hacking,
Yeah.
and they were saying that you can find the bliss that typically take Buddhist monks, 30 years of meditating in caves, right?
Yeah.
You can now do it with plugging in and listening to this MP3 file. The point is with that is that the funny thing about that is that when we do meditation, we're trying to just sit and nothing. Sit happens, right?
Just be there.
You just be there, be present, right? So the funny thing about that was what you were saying is a lot of people, all they want to do is nothing. Like they just wish to get to that state of nothing, where other people just do nothing anyway, and they just want to do something.
But
Like
you
you
talk
said, that
about-
1 out of 7 million people, that if this person just doesn't do anything, think about how many people are trying to be like that person, to just do
That's
nothing.
true, yeah.
So isn't it
Yeah.
weird? But it's like with inequality, the way I look at it too is like a friend of mine used to say, it is what it is.
Another man's hell can be another man's heaven.
Right, but now, if you say that though, it is what it is, it isn't what it isn't. So I think inequality, you're absolutely right, it's not fair. Like the kids will say to me all the time, like, it's not fair. I'm like, you know what? You're right, it's not fair. But the thing is with inequality, I think maybe it's the recognition of what am I working with. In other words, like if I wanted to be a basketball player, could I have done it? A professional basketball player? Well, probably not. I mean, there are 5'8". I remember growing up, there was Calvin Murphy, he was 5'8".
Yeah.
So it's not to say that you can't do it.
Nah, for
But
sure.
I think that what you're saying too is that recognizing what you have, what you're capable of. I mean, probably there's no limit to what we can do, but there's also, like you said, that genetic predisposition where you even notice you meet people and some people are just more relaxed
more
or angry or
Naturally,
different.
it's a lot of natural aspects to people. Even the way they think and operate. It's just
Right.
like Joe Rogan spoke about that,
Right.
and I forgot which podcast, but he was just like, he went to a lot of different towns in America, just road tripping and stuff,
Right,
and he's
right.
just like, wow, some people are literally, sorry to say this, not to offend anybody, but are below human. Like we need church and simple things for them because I'm not trying to explain how existence is immeasurable.
Right.
And in all these complex topics
Just simple
to them, like,
morals or ethics.
yeah, let's just keep it. Hey, yeah, there's a God up there, and He judges every aspect on your morals, on your morality, and the good go here, the bad go there. Let's just keep it at that.
Yeah. But how do you?
But that's a language they can understand.
Perhaps.
How do you explain? I was gonna go back to like what you were saying. How do you explain like? Because we don't have talents. Some people don't have talents and stuff. But how do you explain my passion for something? I didn't choose to be passionate about that.
It just happened. Yeah.
It just happened.
Well, and I want to ask a question though. We should probably answer that one first. But the thing I was just going to say to Goose was that is inequality bad?
No, I'm not saying it's bad.
If it just is, but like what I was thinking too is what you guys were hitting on last show was that they found with quantum physics that at the core of everything is nothing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what am I? At the heart of me is nothing.
And let me tell you something. It's funny because I do believe in God, a creator,
or higher power,
whatever you want to call it, and I definitely believe in like something extraordinary is out there.
And in here, and like you said too,
we're just part of everything.
I love the way you said that with the weather, how like every cell, like on a cellular level, you were connecting with this cold. But it's amazing, like how often do we actually experience, like when you're drinking a smoothie, like wow, like, literally you are what you eat. So when you drink the smoothie, it becomes your cells, your thoughts, your feelings,
everything.
So it's pretty amazing. Like, but the thing is, can we get in? How often can we get into these peak moments? Like they say, they've done studies with drugs and stuff, and alcohol and other peak moments, and they say that the less you do it, the more powerful it is. So if you do it over time,
I agree with that.
In other words, you want to be 24/7 connected to this.
Remember, I always say, like, generations from now, it's like 4 generations from now, they're gonna be a different species. Like,
right.
You know what I'm saying? So as far as us right now, I like to say that understand your own individual biochemistry, because some people react to different things completely different,
right?
And some don't even have profound experiences. Like they'll take like shrooms and go to MMA fights and be like, "Fuck yeah!" And I'm just like, "Really? That's not."
I don't think it's sad.
No, I don't think it's sad at all either.
I'd rather live in simplicity and be simple-minded, because you're easily pleased. You don't really contemplate on anything. What is this? What is that?
And that's maybe everybody's purpose is different, and like Logan was saying something about with, let's say, weed is an amplifier, so whatever you're feeling, it amplifies it. So
that's true.
But the thing is, with simplicity and complexity, I think once again they're complementary opposites, and I think in life there's going to be moments that you want to go deep, and then other moments where you want to stay shallow. Like I think Tim and Tank were talking about the water, where Tank was saying getting to the surface, and right when you think you're there, you're not there.
Yeah,
and then you go back.
It's always like that, man.
But I think it's interesting. I think as we are now, that's an amazing way of looking at the biochemistry. Because if you look at the body and the mind, there's the fuel and the way that the body works, and there's certain activities such as physical activities, whether they're non-exercise physical activities or whether it's running, martial arts, yoga, definitely changes not only the body, whether on a muscular level or skeletal and so on, hormonal, and the neurotransmitters are all altered. So I think it's important if we can do things like that, like I was saying to Jay when I first got into being aware and mindful of physical activity and diet, stuff like that, so that I could sort of change the quality of my life. In other words, it's not necessarily how much you have, it's how you just feel about what you have. So I think I think that stuff like sleep, meditation, these things can really affect the biochemistry. But I think that a lot of people don't really pay attention to that, and then they wonder why they're feeling like crap.
Yeah, I always say just analyze what you do, And another thing, it's like there's people say, oh, I'm gonna enjoy this, I'm gonna enjoy this. Enjoy or enjoyment has the word joy, and a lot of times they're talking about just pleasure,
right?
And I'm just like, I remember when I really started focusing on in the moment of now. I drank water. I didn't even realize it. Kind of just happened on its own, where I was just really focused in the moment, because I had like a great idea that I was writing, like music wise and stuff, and I was just like, I just drank water like that, and then I just felt it in my body just flow through my body. I was just like, whoa. I realized, wow, I'm enjoying this. I was like, and that's like power of now stuff,
But do you think that people or society or culture frowns upon that and people aren't supposed to have joy? Or do you think that it's the individual that sort of holds himself back? Like, do you not allow yourself to have those things?
It's hard, man, because if you don't have harmony in your house or harmony, with yourself, it's very hard to just enjoy anything, man. You know, and it's like it starts in your mind, everything, and that's where everybody should start. Wherever you're living in this random world,
But now, what do you think about like the thing that you guys pose? So that's where is your mind, or are you your mind, or your body?
And that's something I wanted to get to. It's funny because like I said, I believe in a creator, but I feel like when people say like, oh, God forgives everything, right? If God is so understanding, then He would understand that criminal. He would forgive, right?
Yeah, but I don't want to get into religion.
We're not talking about religion.
Really
so let's get into let's get into essential amino acids.
But wait a minute. Hold on. I'm not gonna get into religion at all. I'm saying just my my thing on like the infinite consciousness and stuff like that, right?
Your view on it.
Like I've done psychedelics a couple of times, and it's funny because they say psychedelics is like 30 years of meditation in one day.
Right.
And it's crazy because it comes so fast and so hard.
You may not be able to be
even have tenacity in
or
it.
able to come back from it.
Or able to come back from it.
People that took so much stuff that they. And that's the thing when we talk about life hacking, and that's like the new craze, with how to hack your life. In my opinion, I would rather do 30 years of mindful living than take some pill, because if I took the pill, what if I wasn't ready? What if it was too much?
Yeah.
Like you were saying, that experience that you had that transformed.
But I did it very proper.
No,
like,
no.
Little amounts.
No, I'm talking about the time that you had that like a revelation or awakening experience when you were working at the I think you were like working in a building, doing cleaning or something, and you had this.
Oh, that happened on its own.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. When you take a pill.
No, it was completely sober though.
Right, but I'm saying, so think of the impact of that. Or the trickling of the water down your throat when you were drinking. If you take this pill that's 30 years of meditation, what if you're not ready for it?
Yeah.
Like I said to Jay before, if you had a choice of doing 1 hour of physical activity, eating clean and green, plants and fruits and vegetables, beans and greens and so on, and getting good night's sleep, or I could just give you the pill and you could have the same results. Most people would take the pill, but isn't that like that whole thing with hacking? I mean, I understand if you're going to do certain activities to lead to certain results, but if you get something that gives you something that you didn't really work for, in other words, is being a criminal, is that an honest living? Or like, you ever hear the story about there was a band of thieves, and they're a band of thieves, they had a loot, they stole a whole bunch of stuff, right? And then some of it was missing, so the gang leader called everybody ahead, and he said, he had the whole band of thieves together, and he said, listen, there's a thief among us. We're all thieves. So what I'm saying is that, like, in my opinion, psychedelic drugs and stuff like that, it could be an amazing doorway or key to other levels of reality. But the thing with it is that it could also be so powerful
and destructive
that you may not be able to come back from it. Or you may not be ready for it.
That's with everything, though. Like pleasures.
Right.
That could be, and they say people who haven't experienced a psychedelics experience are basically virgins to psychedelics.
And then, well, how can they judge it without doing it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's very hard to judge.
But that's why in life, and you could say that it's all relative to what you've experienced from a subjective standpoint. Like the conversation we have right now, we could probably talk for 3 days or 3 months. And if you got Tank and Tim here, we could talk for 3 decades. But the point is that to someone else, anyone else might hear this conversation and be like, man, those dudes are, those people
I agree.
in left field.
But all right, so I wanted to get back to the question I had about how do you explain that? Like if me liking a certain passion, why am I not passionate about boxing instead of Muay Thai?
Right, you're saying, so in other words, well, that's an interesting thing, and I think if Goose maybe can clarify, but with thoughts and feelings, like you can think certain things, but the way you feel, I think that's like with a passion, like when you have a passion for something, it's not necessarily something you're choosing. The passion kind of chooses you, where you know, like with thoughts, people say think positive. You're going to be okay. Think positive. Right? But then, how do I feel? How do you feel today? I don't feel good. You know. But then you try to feel good. But can you think yourself into feeling good? Maybe. I like to think, you know what? There is no definitive yes or no. It's a lot of stuff is, you know, the best answer is maybe. Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
the best answer is always maybe.
But I think that, what do you think, with passion, do you feel that that's something like feelings which they sort of come
Well,
to you subconsciously, where thoughts are something that you're more fabricating?
It's like
Or is life a fabrication? Everything's it's all an illusion. It's all
feel you,
an allusion, a confusion, a diffusion, a infusion, right? It's in. It's I-N.
It's like Dan Pena. He was on the London Real podcast, and
oh yeah, I heard about that. The London Real.
he's like a big, you know, high millions, like 400 million and up type of entrepreneur. You know,
Right.
very serial entrepreneur, and he was just saying, like, one thing I can't teach is passion. That's one thing I cannot teach you. You know, and it's true. Like, as far as passion, or even just a lot of things, it's almost like if it's an illusion. You know, like self can change at any damn time. It can be something tragic, or it could be something rewarding, and it can just change you, the way you think, or that. And the change I'm speaking about is like when you quit it, you know, like cigarettes or something that was really bad for you. That change, where it's just like pure clarity. You know.
But here's a great line that I think too, is that if everything, there is no you. What if, like Alan Watts, we want to go all Alan Watts on you? If there is no you, everything is a fabrication and an illusion. But the thing with that is, I read something with Gandhi, and he said that the person who's starving can see God in a loaf of bread. So what if somebody's an alcoholic or junkie? I don't want to promote lifestyle choices that could screw people up health-wise and their loved ones. But what if somebody, like when we talk about passion, what if somebody is really passionate about their gambling or about their drug use or their addiction, you know, or porn or whatever it is? If they're really passionate about that, maybe for that person that is bliss and
yeah, like Carl Unger, he was one of the top gamblers, and they made a movie on him, and his nose like collapsed too from doing a lot of, you know, cocaine and stuff.
so
But he was
Mm-hmm.
just so good at it, unbelievably good at it.
But what if that's his path? In other words, like everybody has a path to get, and that's what I was saying.
So you believe in destiny?
You know, I liked it.
Wait, I wanted to say something.
I was going to say that,
talking about that.
You know, that with the passion was that.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you could go ahead. You know, because I was thinking that everything is about, like when I first checked out Jay's first podcast that he did when he's talking just by himself, the ramblings of a madman looking for spirituality, and I was thinking that in all this stuff that we're doing, it's all about transformation, transcending the idea of the individual. So, like for a gambler, maybe if that's his path and that's his destiny, to use the quotes, you know, like. Then maybe that's his road to ultimately transcending himself. Because I think we ultimately, each one of us, you know, we come into the world and we leave the world, we depart, right? We arrive and we depart, or it might be the same thing, we don't know. But the point is, everybody has their path or their. Now, destiny, like it was destined to happen? I don't know about that, but I think that it's all about the transformation. And what you were saying is that whether somebody, like you can't teach passion. I think that certain things are just going to come to you subconsciously. Like you say, the conscious mind is only like 3% of us. So like we're 10%, like 90% of us, we don't even know why we're doing what we're doing. So I think that's all about, like you were saying, to connect to oneself, to be one's best friend, and your true love is the most essential thing to, you know, loving and respecting others is starting within. But I think that it's all, like for me, in one word, when I saw Jay's thing, I was like, this is great with the podcast. What he's doing is all about transcending and transforming. And in my opinion, like you were saying, it's happening all the time, whether we know it or not. So it's just a matter of tuning into it, hopefully, and becoming aware within the limits of what you can take.
Yeah.
You know, and hopefully you don't hurt yourself or others. That's the thing about, like, if your passion is gambling or drugs, it can be destructive to oneself. Now that's your choice, but if you have loved ones, you know, you don't want to take them down with you necessarily.
Definitely.
You know.
I feel like as far as saying like what are we, I feel like maybe we're part of something just big. Literally everything though, like everything.
What do you mean though? Explain it.
Like
It's-
a greater.
It's like when you experience meditation or psychedelics or anything, and it's weird. Like you disconnect from being like a human, and all your memories they start to fade. You start to see your mom, your dad, like everything, and it's just you feel like you're in that movie Lucy, where she reached like 20% cerebral capacity, and she's like, "Okay, mom, I love you, goodbye." Because it's like you respect that.
But
that
maybe,
aspect.
do you think that that's too much though, or like what do they say with JRE? Powerful.
It's
Powerful.
it's
But,
not,
but if
it's
it's
powerful
too,
though.
but what if it's like
Powerful
too much?
podcast.
Right, like if it's too much, like my thought would be like if it's so much that your mind would
Yeah.
explode, like it's just, or it would implode, like it would get like the opposite of explode.
Yeah.
In other words, like I see what you're saying with that collective consciousness and the real reality.
And when you-
but
when
maybe
you-
it's too much. Do you
Yeah.
think? Or it's not enough.
I mean, it's like I said, it's all about the individual because we live in a time of a lot of variety and variances of.
Now,
of
with time,
people.
what if, like Tank was saying, it's only an appearance of the time continuum? What if there is no such thing as time? Like, I got this
Yeah.
watch now. The first time I met you on the bus to Atlantic City was now. When I first got here and I said, "Where's Goose?" It was now. Right now, I'm looking at my watch and it says now. What if, in other words, what if time is a construct that we've imposed? Because
That's another thing I'm
if
gonna
we're
get to.
beyond
It really is,
time
though.
and we're in
But-
this true reality, we have to create a story like, oh, I'm Paul, oh, and then you're
Exactly.
creating a story, I'm Goose, and this is what
Yeah.
happened.
Characters in a book.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like there is like this subjective part about us that we have to operate with free will and all this stuff. But like I said, you start to leave when you're in psychedelics. You disconnect.
Right.
So you disconnect so much.
You really do.
I was just like woof like that, and it's
Yeah.
just like you see everything go infinite. Like I'm like, wow, that moment was infinite. Actually, everything is infinite,
Right.
and we've been doing and having the same conversations and everything for eternity. There's no
Right.
beginning or end to this, and
We
it's just
only,
like
the names have
whoa.
changed, but the actual activity.
it's all
just-
existing, everything at once,
I felt the
simultaneously.
same though when I
You know?
did ayahuasca and I came back. I forgot that I was human, that I'm still gonna have these feelings because you're so far. When you're tripping, you're so far out there that you're like, oh, I'm not gonna feel getting angry again and all of this.
And then it
When you get
happens.
back, you're like, fuck, I still have all these feelings.
But that's part of, I think the thing with anger, or like someone could say, I can teach you how to never be angry again. But like for me, it's like as long as you're human, you're going to need to, these things, maybe they'll happen less, and when they happen, it won't be as, the good things will be gooder, even though that's not
Gooder.
And the bad things, well, that's if we go back to
Yeah,
choice. Like there's, what do they say? There's good, better, and best, and then there's
Yeah.
bad, worse, and worst. So like hopefully if you see, like you could try to make the best choices you can, and then there was even a new thing that they said with choices, when you make a choice, there's that certain amount of milliseconds or so on before you actually do what you're gonna do, so that you can reverse the choice. But I think
Yeah.
all of this stuff is a story that we need to believe, like I was saying to Jay earlier, there's something, Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey, each individual has these trials and tribulations in their life to bring them to some sort of realization. It's like every night, in my opinion, it's like an out-of-body experience. How do we, when you wake up, it's sort of a,
Yeah, you're like, whoa.
It is.
and I had a dream last night, it was weird, like in the dream, I was with some people I had grown up with, and some stuff that we did that we regretted doing, and then I said, the only thing that saves me from this is a belief in, a higher power that forgives me for what the things that we did wrong. So I truly believe that at the heart of us, whatever it is that's animating, that's beyond description, and people have been talking about it for centuries, the unknown or what can't be put in words. We're trying to put it in words. Like you said, the conversation, which is what's great about this podcast is that it's like a never-ending conversation,
It really is.
but it never started. And it can never really be explained.
Dude, you started talking.
You
Once
know?
I opened the door, you
Yeah.
just
And even when
didn't
we
stop
met, I'm trying to
talking.
think when we first met. Now, how did when we did the video?
That promo, we worked on a
but
promo
before
together.
the promo,
We've spoken. 'Cause
Yeah.
You did an interview on me.
Yeah.
I think I have the video, but yeah, I have the video in the CD of you
But-
doing an interview.
But the
Oh
interesting
my
thing about
God.
that too is like after a fight, and like I don't know if you guys saw that, like when you with sporting events, when they interview people, right after the fight. It's a totally different mindset than, let's say, where we are right now.
Yeah, it's weird.
And that's what I was saying with podcasts. Like, they do some podcasts standing up, and I think the technology is going to change where you can do podcasts. Let's say, like, where we're running.
And we're like,
podcast.
that'll be cool. That'll be crazy.
Or like podcasts, where
on the road, or like.
Yeah, or like, so the thing is, like, right now, I think with, like, I was thinking about it with technology, with the way computers are, everybody sits at a computer hunched over 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day. That's all they do. But the thing is, the technology's got to change, where there's got to be something where you could use your mind instead of a mouse or keyboard. You could just like send thoughts to the computer.
It has to
go to this website.
They're already working on stuff. Yeah.
Next 100 years.
But I think technology.
100. That's gonna exist in like 20, 30 years.
But my thing too is that what I was saying
Nothing's
is that
for certain.
the technology, exactly. That's the one thing that's certain. There's nothing for certain. The thing that I was thinking too with technology, does it make hurt, like bad things hurt less? Does it make good things even better? I don't know. I think that since the history of time, there's been joy.
With technology.
There's been joy and suffering in life, pleasure and pain.
Regardless of what material.
It doesn't matter what technology you have. You're still going to experience terrible things and wonderful things.
You have to define each other, right? But
well, and complementary opposites. So it's like the thing is, I think with technology, but it definitely allows us to connect. And I have friends that live in other countries. The beautiful thing about this technology is that you can connect with people where formerly you couldn't. But then again, you could write a letter.
Yeah, it was different.
Just different ways of connecting.
I had a pen pal when I was like in first grade and stuff. It was way different. And I was gonna actually backtrack to like awareness. And like, you ever heard of just now?
And then you get nibs.
I was gonna mention like, you ever heard like when people say the answers are within? Like, you don't have to seek. Like, a lot of people go out and seek answers, like, oh, advice from him, her. But really, I've learned like a lot of the answers are in you. Well, basically, meaning like what you feel about the situation. That's the answer.
You can find it. Well, I'll tell you something. My mom is actually a psychotherapist.
Nice.
My mother, my doctor, and the funny thing is with her, I think you're absolutely right. Is that people help, but when you go to someone for help, they don't necessarily. What's the bit famous saying? Like, you can teach a man to fish, or you can give him a fish.
Yeah.
But if you give him a fish, he's going to be dependent. So I think that what you're saying is that with therapy, the whole idea with therapy is you go to this person, and they help you uncover what's within. I believe that to a certain degree, but I think that, let's say, people that have experience can share their experiences with each other, and that can help. That can help. I love it with podcasts, like when you hear chewing, like, who's chewing?
Yeah, you gotta move the mic when you chew.
But podcast is a new technology too. It's not, so that it's almost like, a television show, but the thing, what I was going to say is that I think we can share experiences and knowledge with each other, and that can help us. But then I think that there's something called the ownership principle, which is that if I just, like, Jay works up a routine for me for training and what I should eat, and he gives me this whole, routine to do, regimen and routine, I could follow, but ultimately I need to own it. I need to make it mine, or else why would I stick to it? Like, they say it's not what you do, it's not what works if you stick to it. It's what you do that. Wait, it's not what works if you stick to it. It's what you stick to that works.
No, you're right. I completely.
And you know what's good about these things too? It's like a musical instrument.
Yeah, I know. I gotta get some shock mounts.
I kind of like these.
Yeah, you like it?
It's like a musical instrument. It's like the sound of the universe. Alan Watts.
And with that, we're actually coming to a close. It's almost 2 hours. Yeah.
Well, that was awesome. I mean, I didn't even look at my notes because, like I was telling Jay that listening to the show with you guys, I was just writing stuff like a crazed madman because it was like, this is amazing. Like, all the stuff you guys were hitting on was like, this is me. I mean, I felt like
it resonated with you.
Yeah,
nice,
awesome.
Great stuff. Should I take us out with what's that song? How does it go?
Before that, but do you want to give any shout out to her?
Well, I think that we all have an agenda. Everybody's selling or pushing something. I wish I had a book or a store or a product. I don't know.
Or where can people follow you? They feel something resonated with them that you said.
They need to follow. They need to look in the mirror, and that's the person they should follow. No, because I'm nobody.
That's true, man. That's true.
No, I mean, similar to, hopefully, I have a YouTube channel which mostly is, as an amateur video videographer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have all these the amateur, the fights,
Alright.
take on fights, and I have a couple of other folders, with music and stuff that I've done.
So what's the name of that channel?
That's they can just if they look up any take on New York, they'll find Paul Katz as in meow CATS 02. Because my last name is actually Katz, KATZ, but
Katz.
the website or the YouTube is PAULCATS 02.
Well, I mean, you're on social media as well.
And I'm on social media as well. So
Paul
I mean, I would
Katz.
love to put together something, more,
In the future.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
but-
Facebook is fine too.
But even in the future, I don't want to look too far ahead. Right now is the only moment I have. So right now we are putting something together, and you know what? Whatever the next eternal now comes to.
Yeah.
That's true.
Just look him up, Paul Katz, on Facebook and YouTube. You'll find him.
Yeah.
Alright, and on that note,
I think I lost sound.
yeah,
Oh, you can hear that?
the game is up.
No, I can't. There you go.
You can play it towards the mic.
Yeah, I think we had sound earlier, but
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
there is no sound. The sound of the universe is the collective home. No, but it's been great. Thanks for having me on, and,
Yeah, it's a
I
pleasure.
recommend people listen to Jay's stuff. He's got a lot of insight as well as Goose, and and I think what Goose said, it's not about age, how old somebody is, because people have this a lot of insight and experience to share, and sometimes the perceived age of what somebody is will stop people from
Approaching them or doing a lot of different
and learning
things.
stuff from them.
Yeah, and on that note, we're out of here.
Alright,
Because
guys.
now we're gonna keep going.
G rocks.
Peace, my friends. Oh
Yeah, I
man.
think when we first started, I had sound, but